Right, welcome everybody. Welcome people watching live on YouTube, and welcome back to everybody that listens on the podcast. You'll notice much cleaner audio this week because we are back in front of the table, back at NPK Media, back for NPK Podcast Live. And fingers crossed, we're not going to have any more issues with Mr. Mevo over here because, it's been a nightmare. Thank you. We have been, for people that watch live every week, then you'll know that we have some issues with going live and it suddenly cuts off. Apparently that was because of the battery. So we've had to send it all the way back to New York, get a brand new one. They've sent it back. It's all working. It's all ready. It's fixed. Touch wood. And we'll see how it goes. So I'm also, if you didn't know, we have set up a specific Instagram for podcast. So that the shop, NPK_hydroponics, is just purely for the shop. The media, at NPK_media, is just for the media company. And the podcast has its very own special podcast, NPK Podcast. So let's go live and let's see what people are saying. It's question time this week, podcast 189. We asked some questions at the Product Earth Expo. So you were a little bit apprehensive about getting on the podcast, weren't you? There wasn't that many people willing to jump on the podcast and ask the questions, but we did get 4, I think. So we're going to be asking those questions in a minute. I'm going to set up my phone so that we can go live on Instagram and get some questions off you. But if you're watching live on YouTube, now is the time to ask your questions and we will get to them. So we're live on Instagram, NPK Podcast. We're live on YouTube, ask your questions, episode 189. And it's me, Steve. Barry is getting ready for the Northwest stages this week. So he is not with us, but he will be back very, very soon after having an amazing weekend at the rally. So first and foremost, it's episode 189. It's Growers Question Time. And we're going to give thank you to the partners, which are AutoPot Watering Systems, the #1 gravity-fed system in the world. We have can filters, the #1 in extraction and air movement. We have SANlight leading the sales in NPK in LED technology, fantastic LEDs. We have Revolution Micro, who do the Revolution Diva. They do the ceramic metal halide, and they also have their Vici LED. And we have, last but by no means least, we have CANNA Nutrients, probably the best nutrients in the world, if it's right for you, of course. So thank you very much to the partners of the podcast. And we'll go for our intro and we'll be back in a minute. So ask your questions, get your comments in, and we'll answer them live on the show. See you in a minute.
All good? Ready to go? Turn my voice up a little bit. Oh, got that. Everyone watching, the whole family.
Are you ready to go? Are you built to be in the house that I built, in the booth that I built?
I know people tune in every Sunday to listen, but even when business is good, we still manage to do the podcast.
So who have we got joining us now? We've got people on Instagram, on the podcast. We've got the Booker Company. Yes, what's happening? You're good. We make the best coffee in the UK, apparently. So waving to everyone on Instagram. If you've got your questions, it's podcast 189. It's Growers Question Time. Get your questions in. So, Coates, we had some questions from Product Earth, from the brave people at Product Earth. You got the first question for us? Let's hear it.
Name's Dr. Green Tips off Instagram. Which is the better method for yield, a Wilma pot or an AutoPot?
Sound. Thank you very much for that question. So, what's better for yield, Wilma or AutoPot? It's a little bit hard for us to answer this one because AutoPot as you just heard, one of the partners. So if we say AutoPot, it might come across as though we're a little bit biased. But I'm going to offer you some reasons of why I think AutoPots will give you the better yields. First of all, Wilma are very good. Hang on. Coats, the people on YouTube watching live couldn't hear that question. So the question was, just in case that technology is not working properly, what is better for yield, a Wilma pot or an AutoPot? That was the question, and it should be up on the live, or on the actual podcast. So hard for us to answer because AutoPot is a partner, and you may think we're being biased, but I'm going to explain why I believe AutoPots will give you the better yield. It's because even though Wilma is a very good system, so if you don't know what a Wilma is, it's easier to Google it and see what a Wilma system looks like. But essentially, it's multiple pots put together in a reservoir, and there's drippers, there's a pump, and there's drippers coming through to 60-40 or pebbles, and you drip feed your system. Now, if you look at those pots in that system, they're quite close together. So if you were growing 4 plants for 5-6 weeks in a vegetative state, then they're going to grow really big and they're not going to have much room to expand. If you did that in AutoPots, you can grow them for, we've actually seen plants, we've seen tomatoes that have been in there for a year and they get strung up, and you can space the AutoPots accordingly to how big your plant's going to be. So for that one reason, I think AutoPots will give you better yield because you can veg them for longer. You get more vegetative matter, and so therefore you can have better yields with AutoPot. Other things to consider with Wilma, with anything electrical, the pumps can always fail. If the pumps fail, then your plants aren't getting fed, they dry up, and they're just going to die on you. Also with drippers, a lot of people can have problems with blocking. So if you run your nutrients and it's not clean, then your drip lines are going to get blocked up. The dripper line tends to be really small, it's normally about 4 mil, and they do get easily blocked up. So if you're not really careful, you're going to have problems. AutoPot, no electricity, it's gravity fed. People say that they get blocked up, but they've now changed the diameter of the hole, so it allows more water through. It's a lot less likely to get blocked up. So that's my answer for you there. Thank you very much for asking that question. And hopefully, so it's AutoPot for the yields, and hopefully I've backed it up with some reasons rather than just saying AutoPot and people thinking I'm saying just because they're a partner. I'm just going to check the Instagram, make sure I'm not missing any questions. Hi, Kayla from Easy Grow. You okay? And the highlight kind of culture is still joining us. Good stuff. If you're just joining on Instagram or you're just joining on YouTube, it's podcast 189. Ask your questions. It's Growers Question Time, and we're answering them. Coatsy, we've got another question that was from Product Earth in August. Let's hear it.
Steve, it's Scousenberg here, lad. I'm just wondering, what's the best way of coping with runoff?
Good question, actually. Good question. It's hard to cope with runoff. A lot of people are top feeding, and top feeding properly can get quite a bit of runoff. Now, I know you've messaged me since then and said what you use is sponges and you sponge it out and put it into a bucket. That works fine, but it's quite labour intensive. The majority of people will get an inline pump, some 16 mil hose, and connect the two together. So you put one end of the hose into the bottom of your tray, the other end of the hose into your reservoir or into a bath or wherever you're getting rid of it. It'd be nice if you could put it into another reservoir that was downstairs and feed your outside garden with it, reusing your nutrients, less waste, and get rid of it like that. Someone just commented, Pat has said buy a wet vac, works brilliantly. You can get them Henry ones now, the blue in colour, wet vac's brilliant, that works equally as well. But the number one way, it's maybe a little bit more expensive than what I've just mentioned, but Medusa Systems or Alpine Systems, Alpine Manufacturing produce a system called Medusa, and you can put your pots on it, water away, you put your drippers into it, whatever way you want to feed your plants, and it will automatically collect the runoff and take it to a reservoir, so you can either reuse it or you can take it straight off into your bath or down a waste water pipe. Really good system, especially for people that have got multiple pots. It's going to take them a lot of time to get rid of the runoff. That's the best way to get rid of runoff for people that are hand feeding. So hopefully I answered your question there. What else have we got? We've got Looking for Hope on Instagram. Thank you for joining us. And who else? The Booker Company saying messy and time consuming. It is. So messy and time consuming. It's got to be the Medusa. If you are run to waste, it's got to be the Medusa system. It's not messy. It's not time consuming because it does it all for you. Look it up on Google. It's much easier when you see it. When you see the system yourself, you can actually understand how it's working. It goes to a brain, and when the brain senses that there's water there, it'll automatically get rid of it. Thank you very much for that question. Coatsy, what's the next question for us from Product Earth?
What's the science behind shocking a plant in order to produce more trichomes? How do you do it? When do you do it? I suppose the obvious answer might be to introduce UV lighting towards the end of the flowering cycle, somewhere between 2 to 3 weeks. But is there anything you can do other than that to have the plant produce more trichomes and not really compromise on the flowering time? So whether it's 8 weeks or 7, to sort of maintain that. That's what we were thinking. And if there's anybody out there that's got a good answer for it, we'd love to hear it.
So the science behind shocking a plant for more trichomes, essentially, in a nutshell, the science is that plants protect themselves, and the way that to protect them is by producing trichomes, and trichomes produce resin. Depending on the type of plant, that resin will more than likely taste absolutely disgusting to a creature that's trying to eat it or consume it. So, excuse me, that's essentially the science behind what's happening. So the way you can increase that is you can, like the question said, you could use UV light. So it's the UVB light. You want to use it in the last 2 to 3 weeks, replicates what the sun will give out to a plant. And the reason that the plant producing more trichomes and more resin is because it's trying to protect itself. And it's a little bit like when humans get a suntan, your skin goes darker so that you get less radiation actually affecting your skin. And that's what plants are doing. So UV light works really well, but you've got to use it in the last 2 to 3 weeks, because it depends. If you're adding supplementary light in, it's fine. But if you tend to turn lights off to add UV, you're obviously going to affect yields. Other ways that you can do this, essentially you want to shock the plant, but not so much so that you can affect yields. So I've heard some growers will use cold water or an ice flush, so the plants get really shocked at the root zone and they think that winter's coming. And what they will do is they will do a last burst of push of energy and push the trichomes out and push the resin out. So that's one way of doing it. Also, you could probably try reducing the humidity, but keep an eye on the temperature, because reducing the humidity, increased transpiration, and if you've got increased temperatures, you're going to end up in a mess. You've got to be careful with this one, but you can reduce humidity to 35%, maybe 30%, reduce your temperatures and just stress the plant out a little bit that way. But again, you're messing about with the plant, and you're messing about with, like they said in the question, how long they're going to flower for. So it could stunt flowering a little bit. You could improve quality by shocking the plant, produce more trichomes, but you could affect yield at the same time. So you've got to take all these variables into account and see how much you actually want to shock the plant. Stripping the leaves at the end. This works in the way that you're stripping leaves back, so you're increasing airflow around the plant. Big thumbs up for increasing airflow. But you're also, the plant believes it's under attack by creatures that want to eat it. So when plants are under attack, they'll send messages to themselves and they'll produce more of that resin that tastes horrible, hopefully puts off the animal that's going to eat the plant. Some plants, or some trees actually in Africa, probably around the world actually, when they start being eaten, they will actually produce hormones or pheromones to let other trees, other plants nearby know that there's a predator in the area, and those other trees will start producing resin. It's a mad what plants can actually do, and that's one of the ways that you can do it in your house, or stripping leaves at the end. Lastly, I've put that using products such as Terpinator and Winter Frost, these are nutrient stressors. So I'm 100% sure about Terpinator. You add that during the end, it produces more terpenes because it's a problem for the plant. It gives it a little bit of stress, so it increases trichome production. Winter Frost, use it at the end. I'm not 100% sure that the plant sees it as a stress, but it's definitely up there. It works. It's a very good product. So if you're into Terpinator, try Winterfrost. It's very good. And then you've got the likes of Terpinez, but they're a little bit different than Terpinator because they are made up of essential oils. So it allows the plant to produce more essential oils without stressing out. So different modes of operation for that there. So any other way you can think of stressing the plants, you've got to just think of your variables. You've got to think, if I stress my plant, I'm going to hopefully get better quality through trichome production, through resin production. But will I affect my flowering time? Will this, I'm in week 6 now, and I'm expecting to do 8 weeks of flower. Is this going to push it to 10 weeks? The other thing you've got to think about as well is when you stress the plant, it's spending most of its energy to look after itself. And you want the most amount of energy to go towards yield and packing on the weight. So you've got to weigh up the pros and cons of stressing your plant. So that's it, basically. Science behind shocking a plant for more trichomes definitely works. You just got to weigh up the pros and cons of it. Let's have a quick look at some comments. Hello to everyone that's just joining us. Having a fan in there to break the plant a bit, it repairs stronger, more trichomes. So yeah, so rather than a fan to sort of break the plant, as you're saying, you can actually, and some of the techniques that you want to be using is, this is an early veg, so you can actually pinch the stem so you hear a slight pop, and this is how you produce knuckles, and that's just a little bit of a way of plant manipulation. And it's not so much for trichomes, but it definitely works to help create a bigger, stronger plant. So CANNA Culturist said, a plant will produce more resin from cold periods, darknesses periods, sounds of predator insects, basically anything that threatens the plant's well-being. Like my guy said, it's a defense mechanism, 100%. Believe in everything you've said there. Low temperatures drop 10 degrees for the last 7 to 10 days. The Booker Company reckons low temperatures drop to 10 degrees for the last 7 to 10 days. And essentially what that's saying to the plant is, winter's coming. You need to finish your life cycle. Let's go. And that's essentially what you do. CANNA Culturist back saying, UVB light, I've tested, are very effective if used correctly. You use them in 15-minute intervals for a 2-hour period near end of weeks. Brilliant. So we know that UVB works, but make sure, especially with UVB, you've got to be safe. You've got to wear the glasses, you've got to wear the gloves. You don't really want to be in the room when there's UVB on, because it's bad for you. So try not to be in the room when those lights are on. And then last one was end of flower and leaving dark for 4 to 6 days. This is something I haven't tried. I hear a few people doing it with good results. I hear some people doing it and they don't see any difference whatsoever. It's always worth a go. See if you see a difference. If it's your first, second, third time doing this, don't give it a go because you haven't got much to go off. But if you've been doing this for years and you want to try out something new, try one thing and see if it makes a difference. That's another top tip, is try one thing at a time. Don't start trying multiple things, because when it all works, when it all doesn't work, you don't know what the variable has been. So just one thing. Let's go to the YouTube questions. Pat Brady, would you recommend any grower feed foliar with a product they don't know the ingredients of? Looking at you, Moonshine. Okay, so if you are in the US, I know for a fact that they have to put on the bottle what is in the bottle. So people in the US, probably Canada, they're all right. So they know what they're feeding the plants. In the UK, laws are a bit different. You don't have to put on the bottle what is in the bottle. This will probably allow some companies to get away with putting baddies in the bottles. But for Moonshine, we've had it tested. Moonshine took part in the PGR test. We've tested the Moonshine Foliar and the Moonshine Root Drench, and they're both absolutely free of PGRs. Not a lot of people know this, but we actually tested for a lot more than the 5 bad PGRs, and Moonshine came up completely clean. I have had no problem recommending Moonshine for organic growers or anybody that is interested in running a clean nutrient line. So Moonshine, absolutely 100%. You've got it good with them. Who else have we got today? Pete's back garden, his phone's broke, so he can't tune in. Well, it's a good job to record it so you can get in touch with us. Pat saying make sure use eye protection with UV light, spot on. Ivan saying, has anyone here used EcoThrive? So if anyone has used EcoThrive and they're on YouTube, message Ivan and let him know what you thought of it. We've used EcoThrive. I'm becoming more and more impressed with EcoThrive because it's all right to release EcoThrive charge and it works great. Well done. You've got a great one product. It's not easy, but it's easier than producing 10 products that are all phenomenal. So well done on producing charge. Then they came out and released Biosis. Phenomenal product. Instant microbial tea. Works very, very well. Big pat on the back for producing that. Then they went and produced EcoThrive cocoa, specifically the cocoa with perlite, the 70-30 mix, I think it is. Absolutely phenomenal cocoa. I've had no bad reports of it. It's up there for me with the DNA cocoa with cork. If you haven't tried it and you're on a low-grade quality cocoa, definitely give it a go. What else have we got? The Neutralize, which is the latest product from EcoThrive. You drop it into your water tank, completely eliminates chlorine and chloramines, which are much harder to get rid of. They don't evaporate. And so just constantly coming out with good product after good product after good product. There isn't a single bad EcoThrive product. So yeah, we've used it. Big fans of it. A couple of people getting involved in EcoThrive shouts. Been using BioBiz, but think I'm going to try it. Organic tastes so nice. It does. It definitely does. Right. I'm just going to give a shout to one of the lads in the back there. If anyone's got a phone charger, because my battery is on its ass. So if someone's got a phone charger that I could use, then we'll get that sorted. Right, Coates. What's the third question? Or have we got another question from Product Earth?
Hi, I'm Lewis. It's lou.hadley at Instagram. I'm just wondering what the best lighting system you'd recommend for growing, basically. So obviously I've got friends who use LEDs, got friends who use like HPS 600 watts or thousands, but then I've seen like people using metal halide through and stuff like that. So just wondering what your views are on different lighting situations.
So that was a long question while I was fiddling with my phone. So that question was basically about lighting. What is the best light to use? So thank you very much for that, Lewis. We could do a whole podcast on it, but I'll try and be brief. And Gareth Humphrey, I love you too. Gareth from Highlight, #1 wholesaler in the country, if not the world. Big kisses. So what is the best lighting system for growing was the question. Bit of an impossible question to answer, but we're going to delve in a little bit and hopefully give you a little bit of information. So to go over the lights, you've got HPS, high pressure sodium. You have single-ended and double-ended bulbs. Single-ended being the most common, or have been the most common. Double-ended being the superior light. They tend to come in 1,000-watt double-ended lights, and just a much better bulb, much more efficient. They last longer. You get much better quality from them. You also have your LEDs, your light-emitting diodes. They've been coming on leaps and bounds, and this summer absolutely smashed out the park. We've done really well with LED lights this summer. And then you've got ceramic metal halides, CMHs. Ceramic metal halides, quite similar to HPS in terms of the output, and they do produce a little bit of heat, but you get far better quality from ceramic metal halide over HPS. So what is the best lighting system for growing? It depends. If you are growing, if you got young plants, cuttings, clones, seedlings, then 1,000-watt double-ended light is the worst light for you. If you have got seedlings that are 2.4 meters tall, 2.5 meters tall, and you want to be as efficient as possible, and you want to get the best results and the best quality, then 1,000-watt double-ended lights could be the best lights for you. So what you got to think about is, what are you doing in your garden? And assess what you're doing and pick the right light for you. For most people, it's your bog standard 600-watt HPS in the UK, that is, because we don't tend to have ceilings as high as in the US. And on that point, I just want to reiterate this. I know that I've said this a couple of times. When we in the UK, and I'll speak for the UK because I don't know in depth what other countries are up to or ceiling heights in other countries, but in the UK, we have standard heights for our ceilings. In the US, they have much bigger rooms. The US do everything a lot bigger. So when they're using 10, 20, 50, 100 500,000 watt double-ended fixtures, and we see them on Instagram, we see them on YouTube. We think to ourselves, 1,000 watt double-ended lights must be the best lights that we use because the Americans are using them. They're all using them in the commercial facilities in the US. But you've got to apply this to us. Ceiling's much lower. So when you're hanging 1,000 watt double-ended light, a lot of the time the ballast is taking a lot of that space off you because it hangs vertical rather than horizontal. So you push down even further. The 1,000 watt intensity is just too much for most people to cope with. So you're growing plants that, you're not really growing plants that are knee high or waist high. You tend to be that big in veg. And then when they go to flower, then that's when they start getting to shoulder height or even bigger. And you're going to burn the tops of your plants with 1,000 watt lights. So don't look at what the Americans are doing if you're in the UK. Look at it, make an assessment, and do the best job with what you've got in terms of room space. You've also got quality versus quantity. So do you pick your light to produce the best quality, or do you pick your light to produce the most in quantity? If it's quantity, it's still, in my opinion, probably just tips it 1,000 watt double-ended light fixtures, because if money was no issue, there's a contention for LEDs in there. But taking all realistic variables into account, 1,000 watt double-endeds are quite cheap compared to LEDs. They're giving you the output. People know how to use them. There's a lot of information online on how to use them. So you're still going to get your best quantity, in my opinion, with double-ended 1,000 watt lights. But LEDs definitely are making a marked improvement to jump up there. If you want quality, I'd say it's your ceramic metal halides, or it's a checkerboard of HPS and ceramic metal halide. HPS, ceramic metal halide. Ceramic metal halides coming on leaps and bounds as well over the last few years. You've got Growers Choice. You've got Growers Choice that have come up with a 500 watt dimmable ceramic metal halide. Really nice price point. Hopefully they'll be available in the UK soon. They're based in California. You have your 1,000 watt double-ended ceramic metal halides. Revolution Micro actually do 1,000 watt dimmable ceramic metal halide, I believe. So a lot of ceramic metal halide choices and options, and there's pretty much unlimited options for HPS. LED, you might think because they're a partner, we would say these anyway, but SANlight, absolutely killing it. When we went to Switzerland, they had over 100 light fixtures of SANlight, and the quality and the quantity they're producing was phenomenal. The Booker Company's just made a great point on Instagram that people can use metal halide in veg, HPS and flower. So you use metal halide because it's got more blue light. More blue light will give you shorter, stockier plants, bigger leaves, great in veg. And you move on to HPS because they're slightly more efficient. You're going to get more bang for your buck. So 600 watts of HPS will give you more yield for most lights than 600 watts of ceramic metal halides. So very, very good point there. The best lighting system for growing, next thing you've got to take into consideration is the cost of the lighting setup. Can you afford the lights? Can you afford to run the lights? So the best for somebody who has £500 is going to be a lot different for the best with somebody who has £2,000. So you've got to take in the economics of it all. What can you afford? And we've already covered this, but I mentioned head height. So what head height have you got? It's completely feasible now to use ceramic metal halides all the way through. You could use a 315 if you've got low ceilings. Have multiples of them, but there's less heat per square meter. There's less intensity per square meter, and you can get away with lower ceilings. High ceilings, it's 1,000 watt double-endeds all the way. And if you're in the middle, it's 600. The 600 watt lights. If you've got, some people might want to use 400 watt or 250 watt and dim the ballasts as well. So a lot of variables, very hard question to answer. Hopefully I'll give you a little bit of some things to think about when you're picking your light. What I will say, and what is conclusive, is that the cost of digital ballasts now is pretty much, it's just a little bit more expensive than the magnetic ballasts. Magnetic ballasts are heavy. They vary. If a 600 watt magnetic ballast will vary between 550 and 650. It's up and down. There's really no reason why people should be buying magnetic light ballasts anymore. Make sure you're buying digital. You can dim them. They're a lot safer. They're lighter. They'll last longer. Your bulbs will last longer. Just, it's a no-nonsense buy. Make sure you buy digital. And that is the best lighting system for growing. Coach, was that the last question we had? Yeah, it's all 4. Cool. So we've answered all the questions from Product Earth. Thank you very much for getting involved with the questions at Product Earth. Next year, hopefully you'll all be a little bit braver, and we'll get some more questions off you. And I will be there. I wasn't there on the Saturday. I'll be there to push us all onto the podcast as well. Any questions? Any more questions from YouTube? No, you've all gone quiet. You must be loving what I'm saying. Let's make sure you get your questions in, because we probably won't be doing another Growers Question Time for a good few weeks. We've got a lot of guests, got a lot of subjects to cover before Christmas. So we've had some questions sent in to us on Instagram. Where are they? Covered all of those. Right. First one was CO2 and DWC, yes or no? That was the question that came in. I haven't written your name down, so sorry. I will find out what your name is before we finish. CO2 and DWC, yes or no? So carbon dioxide, deep water culture, yes on both. Absolutely 100% yes on both. If the question was to use them together, yeah, why not? CO2, it's what plants breathe in. We breathe oxygen. Plants breathe in carbon dioxide. So the other thing to think about with carbon dioxide, when I push this point, is if you go onto Google and you look at the dry weight ratio of a plant, the vast majority is carbon. And where do plants get the carbon from? Carbon dioxide. So it makes sense that the more carbon dioxide your plant has access to, the faster its metabolism is going to be, and the better quality and the more high yielding plant you're going to have. So our natural CO2 around us is around 390 to 400 parts per million of CO2. That's just everywhere. If you're using exhale CO2 bags in veg, or TNB bottles, which is full of yeast, you add hot water, you can shake them for 2 weeks, they can take your CO2 up to 800, give or take. We've still got to do the measurements on them, but they definitely do work. If you're going to add in bottles of CO2, then you would take your CO2 levels to 800 in veg. You don't want to waste too much CO2 in veg, because essentially you're just going to produce more leaf matter and your plants will grow quicker, but don't overdo it. You then maybe want to take it to around 1,000 parts per million to 1,200 parts per million in peak flowering production. Some people might say take it to 1,400 or 1,500, but I always say it's like driving a supercar. The higher the CO2 goes, up to about 1,500, the faster you're driving the car, the faster the plant's metabolism is going. And when the faster the plant's metabolism is going, if you make a mistake, incorrect pH, incorrect EC, high temperature, low temperature, whatever the mistake may be, then the plant's going to really suffer, because its metabolism is going so fast. If that car traveling 120 miles an hour hits a pothole, it's going to have problems, and it's going to crash and burn. So be careful with your CO2, but definitely beneficial. DWC. So I say yes because it's my favorite method of growing. You'll never hear me say no to DWC, but there are some down points. DWC is labor intensive. You've got to be on the pH, you've got to be on the EC, you've got to be on the water temperature. You've got to make sure that's constantly got water. You can't ever let it go bone dry. So you've got to constantly make sure it's got oxygen. If you fail on any of those points, your plant's going to fail you. If you get everything spot on, then your plant is going to reward you, because it's got everything it wants when it wants it. So it's going to push itself in yield, push itself in quality, push itself in turnaround. So veg time's much shorter, and it can even increase flowering times a little bit as well. So DWC, big thumbs up from me. It's actually my favorite method of growing. Next question. So, should I prune my plants, and when? Good question. I think me and Barry covered this in depth about 4 or 5 weeks ago. So you can go back and listen to that one. I think we called it plant prune, and it might have been involved in a plant manipulation podcast. But very briefly, yes, you should prune your plants 1 week before you turn to flowering. The reason why you do it a week before flowering is because it's a stress on the plant. You heard us earlier. If you prune your plant late in flower, it's stress. You can potentially produce more trichomes and more resin. So you do it a week before you turn your plants to flowering, because you don't want to stress the plant out too much, and turn your plants to 12 hours of light is also a stress. So a good week to 10 days, give them a nice haircut before you turn them to 12 hours of light. Don't go overboard on the pruning. Just take away big fan leaves that are covering smaller leaves, or cover any really bushy parts where there's minimal airflow around them. Then the next time you want to prune is around 2 to 3 weeks after they've initiated flowering. The reason you want to do it 2 to 3 weeks after is because you're starting to produce your flowering sites, and any flowering sites that are going to form on the bottom with minimal amounts of light aren't going to produce the best quality fruits possible. So you take away those fruiting sites and you allow the plant to focus on its upper flowering sites and get the best quality and the best yield possible from it. So that's, you should prune your plants, and they are, in my opinion, when you should do it. If you want to have a little dabble in increasing quality, increasing trichome production, you can maybe even give them a little bit of a haircut, a little bit of a trim towards the end as well. Coach, if you're listening, a little bit of a drink, please, bud. My mouth's going absolutely dry. Next question we got sent in: how do pests get into a grow space? So whoever sent this in, when I read it like, how do I get pests into my grow space? I was a bit confused with why on earth you'd want pests in your grow space. But I think what you're after is how the pests get into your grow space. And there's a few reasons. A lot of people come in the shop and like, I'm really clean and I do this and I do that, and I still get pests. My first answer is, it's because just pests are everywhere. You could literally have an egg, like a spider mite egg, in the carpet. Thank you very much. You could literally have a spider mite egg in the carpet or in the walls. Perfect conditions allow it to, I'll say germinate, but it'll become a thrip or it'll become a spider mite. And if there's a few in there, they will breed like crazy, and you've got a problem. So here are the reasons, and here's why pests get into your grow room. Pets. Nobody thinks about the pets when they're in the grow room. So you've just taken Timmy for a little walk, been through the lovely woods, the forest, the high grass. He's had a great time. And all these spider mites and ticks and thrips and aphids, they all jump onto his lovely coat. And then Timmy decides that he can have a little rummage around in your grow room. And all these ticks, fleas, thrips, spider mites, aphids, they all see nice green plants and they jump off, and that's how you're getting to get pests. Now, it might not be that obvious, but if you're taking your pets out for a walk, then they're going to get stuff on them. And then they bring it into the house. Inevitably, they're going to end up where there's plants, where it's warm, especially in the winter. The next one is air intake. So if you bring in air in from outside or even from any part of your house, and it's not filtered, then your air in is dragging cool air from a cooler part of the house, dragging it into somewhere warm. So even if there's unintended pests in there, if there's things that don't even want to be in your room, they're going to get sucked in and dragged into the room. That's another way to get pests into your grow room. Easiest way: pair of women's tights. I say women's tights because I shouldn't really have to say women's tights, should I? It's tights. You don't really tend to see men wearing tights. Not in Liverpool anyway. Air intake. Cover the air intake with tights. If for the better growers amongst you, it's just better to get an air intake filter, because it's not only going to stop pests, it's going to stop pollen, it's going to stop basically anything that doesn't want to be in your room. It's going to stop it. It's pre-filtered. Most fan and extraction companies will do them, and it's a good piece of kit, and they're only cheap as well. There's no carbon in them. It's just a good filter for getting rid of pollen, pests, and any spores as well that might want to try and get into your room. Another way, cuttings. So there's just been the Malvern Giant Vegetable Show. Mills, well done to Mills. You won a good few awards. CANNA were the main sponsor, and AutoPot, a lot of it was actually grown AutoPot. So big shout out to everybody. There was a lot of first, second, and third places for our industry. So take me hat off to everyone that got involved. But cuttings, I know that this time of year, most people will be saving seeds from them top vegetables, or they will have a batch of young cuttings from those top genetics, and they'll be passing them around to friends to give them a chance of winning a first prize next year. If the person you're getting the cuttings off is a little bit untidy, a little bit messy, and they don't take care of the cuttings, your pests will definitely come on cuttings. It can be eggs, it can be actual pests. So basically, to stop them coming in on your cuttings, get a small bath. Well, by a bath, I mean a bucket. Get some chemical insecticide or organic, if that's what you want, and just give them a good dip. Dip them in and do that 2 or 3 times over the weeks while you've got them and while they're establishing. That'll basically stop any eggs and any pests from getting into your grow room and establishing themselves. Yourself, that's another way that pests are going to come in. If you haven't got little Timmy as a dog, you haven't got cats or gerbils or whatever it is you keep, yourself, if you've been for a walk, you've been through the park, whatever you've done, and you don't change your clothes, your pants or your shoes, and you traipse mud, shit, dirt, pests are going to come with it. So make sure you change your pants and change your shoes if you've been out on a walk in the fields. And lastly, your friends. Make sure you're telling your friends to hair nets, beard nets, full suits, suits over the suits, biohazard suits, whatever you want to make them wear it, because your people are going to be bringing pests in as well. You might think I'm going on a little bit about how these pests can get in, but literally, if you understood how many people come into the shop and be like, this is not pre-filtered, that don't have pests, and they still manage to get in, they will find a way in, especially in winter when it's cold outside and these pests want to be warm. So make sure you're on top of your pests now to get into the grow room. Looking for hope, and you guys would say this. So they've said, come on, Steve, organic, mate, not chemicals. I agree. Organic and the organic type products to get rid of pests, I would much rather everybody use them. But what I will say, I try to be fair, is that chemicals in such an early stage to get rid of thrip, spider mite, that will not end up in the end product. So if you have to use it, it's better to use it in the early stages. I definitely don't condone serious or dangerous chemicals being sprayed when there's fruit, and when people are going to eat and consume that fruit, the vegetables, then it's not a good thing to do. But if they're only that small or only a few inches tall and you want to get rid of eggs, then it's a good thing to do. So if you want to use organic, there's some great organic pesticides out there, but some people will just be adamant that they have to use chemicals. And I won't say it's a bad thing, because I don't believe from the tests and from the research I've seen that those chemicals don't end up in the final product. So I'll wait for somebody to show me some alternative research. It's harming our outdoor crops. It is, yeah. So if you go around spraying Bayer, Syngenta, or nasty glycophosphates all over your crops, and it's outdoors, that's a different matter, because it's outdoors, you're in contact with bee populations. A lot of these chemicals can kill bee colonies and bee populations. So thank you very much for making my listeners aware that if you're indoors, that's where I believe it's okay. If you're outdoors, no matter what time of the cycle your plant is in, if you're using chemicals, it's going to have a much bigger knock-on effect, whether that's killing the natural insects, the natural predators in the area, whether it's going to affect bee colonies, whether it's going to go into the water runoff and affect fish and breeding habitats. It's not good. So try your best, or just don't use the real nasty chemicals if you're growing outdoors. Thank you very much for bringing that point up. Next question we got was, is it best to grow in a room or a tent? There's no right answer for this one. It depends on the grower, depends on the style of growing, depends on the budget that you've got, and depends on the size of the room as well. So if you're in a smallish room and you want to try and keep everything contained into one small area of that room, then a tent is your good option. Also, tents, if you're just going to use a small portion of the room, then tents are really good, because if you decide to use the full room, then the light that you're using is going to be spread unevenly and the plants aren't going to get as much light as possible. If you use a tent, I'll give an example of a BudBox tent, the white lined ones. You're going to use a quarter of that room, put the lights in there. Every single bit of light is going to be reflected back onto the plant matter, and you're going to get much better results and much better yield. So it's horses for courses in terms of grow room versus tent. We really recommend the BudBox tents, really well built, the white lined, the innovators in the field. They come up with all kinds of really nice things like green viewing windows. So if your plants are in their nighttime, in inverted commas, and it's daytime outside and you open up the tent, you're going to let light in, it could affect the flowering cycle. BudBox went and created the green viewing filter. So when you're looking in, the light's filtered into green, doesn't actually wake up the plants, and you're not affecting the flowering cycle. So is it best to grow in a room or tent? It's up to you. Rooms, a 3x3 room to put silver on the walls and put floor screw on the floor is going to be a lot cheaper than getting a 3x3 tent. But the 3x3 tent can be better to contain any spillages that you've got, can be better to contain any smells if you're growing smelly plants. It's absolutely horses for courses. There's no right answer, and you just do what's right for you. And hopefully that'll have answered your question to the best of my ability without going too much in detail. I think that's a whole podcast in itself. Another question we've had in, and I like the way this is skipping all over the place. It gives a lot of people a bit of variance in the questions. What is the difference between mineral and organic? So we're talking about nutrients here. What's the difference between mineral feeds and organic feeds? The scientific difference is that organics tend to be mineral is much easier for the plant to uptake. It's ready to uptake. It's already in its ionic form once it's been watered down and given to the plant, so it's immediately available. Organics tend to come, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe this, in groups, and those groups have to be split up into its ionic form for the plant to take up. So scientific difference is mineral is been to the most degree manufactured, and organic is mostly from natural sources. The plant has to take a bit of work to break down the organic nutrients. Mineral is ready to uptake straight away. Difference in quality and yield. Mineral tends to yield better because it's immediately available to the plant. When it wants a certain element, it's there ready and it can have it. If it wants a certain element in the organic range, it has to do a little bit of work first, break it down. You've got to make sure you use the right microbes, and then it's ready to take up. So that can potentially affect yields a little bit. Quality, though, for some reason, and I don't believe anyone really knows the true answer, organic does slightly edge you on the quality side of things. I believe it's because we don't understand plants to the full extent. We don't understand plant nutrition fully. And we say that there's 17 essential elements. I believe there's a lot more in terms of essential for quality, not in terms of essential for allowing a plant to reach its flowering peak. So there's a lot of variables between mineral and organic. Quality, it's organic. Yield, it tends to be mineral. The difference to the plant with organic is that it tends to be healthier because you're using microbes. It's got its humics, it's got its fulvics, it's got, basically in organics, I'm led to believe it's got over 100 elements within an organic nutrient range. So these things that we don't understand, that we might not be including in mineral ranges, organics got them, and it's there for the plant to uptake. So again, that's the difference between mineral and organic. You choose what is right for you. If somebody wants to go down the middle, you've got Mills Nutrients, which is a blend of mineral and organic, and Hydroponics as well, which is a blend of mineral and organic. And you've got Buddha's Tree Organicus, which is doing phenomenally well, 99% organic, because the 1% I think they use a citric acid to help keep everything together, working really well as a one-part feed all the way through. How else did we get on with other questions? How far away should my lights be from my plants? Well, that depends on the light that you're using, and it depends on how many lights that you've got. If you see some commercial facilities in the US, let me take another drink. if you see some commercial facilities in the US, you'll see that the lights are really far away. And what you'll probably read on Google is that, I forget what the inverse square law. So as our light is moved further away, less light hits the plant canopy, which is true to a degree, but it's not as simple as that. And that inverse square law applies to one light source. So if you've got one light, the further away it is from the plant, the less light that hits the plant and the less energy that the plant's getting. That's true. But it changes when you've got multiples of light, because there's crossover of there's the we were having a chat before about the term here, but radiation angles or the light angles, the amount of light that's hitting the plant is just a lot different compared to just using a single light fixture. So when you've got multiple light fixtures, it's not super important on getting them as close as possible. You've got to do your light calculations. You've got to make sure everything's in the right order, and you're going to get the right amount of light hitting the plant. The reason it depends on the lights that you're using is if you were using a CFL, 125 or a 300 watt CFL, you can have those pretty much touching the plants and you're not going to burn them. But if you're using 1,000 watt double-ended light, there's a lot more heat coming from it. It's a lot more intense. You have to have them much further away. So how far away should my lights be from my plants? A rule of thumb for an individual light would be, if it's a 250 watt light, you would be wanting to have it about 30 centimeters away. If it's a 400 watt light, you have it 45 to 50 centimeters away. And if it's a 600 watt light, you have it about 60 centimeters, 70 centimeters away from the top of the plant. 1,000 watt lights tend to be about a meter away from the top of the canopy. But what people need to be doing, and one of the things I wanted to do on this year's podcast was go into a little bit more depth for people. So those of you that have been listening for years, you've had the basics drilled into you and drummed down your ears, then this is how you get to the next stage. You want to start doing light calculations. So you'll need advice on this. It's best to go online and look for somebody that knows what they're doing. You will calculate the size of the room, the amount of fixtures you intend to put in there. You'll need to calculate the light spread, and you'll start needing to get into things like PPF, PPFD, which is photosynthetic photon flux density and all that sort of stuff. It sounds complicated. It is a little bit complicated, but you will get, when you see those even canopy yields and they're just, everything is just the same around meters and meters around. There's no tricks or hidden tips for that. It's literally, they have the lights on point. So they have them the right distance. They move them up, they move them down as needed, or they just have them right at the top. And they've done the light calculations so that every little bit of light, there's no heat spots, there's no areas that are getting too much light and areas that are getting too little light. Everything is spot on. And that is the reason why you get perfect canopies. So if you want that perfect canopy, you've got to do your light calculations. Go on Google, start typing in how to do light calculations. Companies like Gavita, Revolution, Diva, Solistech, Lux Lighting. One of my close friends, Theo, used to work at Gavita. He's now gone to work for an LED company called Fluence. If you can get in touch with him, he's your man for light calculations. So that's basically how far your light should be away from your plants. Depends on the light using, depends how many lights you've got. I want growers, I want our listeners to start getting into soil, to start getting into light calculations and working out area of the room and how much light's actually hitting the plant, and you'll get much better results, and you'll get that even crop canopy spot on. I've seen a question pop up. The sun is miles away and still get monster plants. Love outdoor light. Yep, that's a very valid point. But the sun is also very intense. And the plants have evolved over billions of years to grow to that intensity of light. So they're used to it. The filtration of the Earth's atmosphere, everything, they've got used to absolutely everything. And they know what they're getting when they're outside. We've got to try and replicate that a little bit and get as close to quality of sun and intensity of sun as we can, because we do know that outdoor grown plants do perform a lot better. What lumens is the sun? I'm not even going to answer that question, because we don't measure plants. We don't measure light in lumens unless you're a human. For plants, it's par. So we'll move on from that. Lumens are for humans. If anyone talks about measuring light in lumens, don't buy the light, because they know fuck all. And they're probably trying to hoodwink you as well, so ignore them. What was our next question? What is the difference between all the medias you can buy? So, very simple. Soil, cocoa mixes, which includes cocoa perlite, cocoa pebbles, and other inert medias such as rock walls, growdans, all that sort of stuff. In a nutshell, the difference between them: soil has a higher cation exchange capacity, has a higher capacity to hold on to positively charged particles, and you tend to have to feed less because you're going to feed with a soil feed. You'll keep your mother plants in soil. You'll tend to do organic grows in soil. You'll tend to get slightly better quality in soil, but you may suffer with yields a little bit. Cocoa is, as far as we're concerned, it's not scientifically innate, but as far as we're concerned, it's innate. Some have increased cation exchange capacities. You can see on the bags of soil, CEC, cation exchange capacity, and it's basically how well cocoa will hold on to nutrients and how easily it'll give nutrients to the plant when it requires it. Cocoa mixes, you have cocoa mixes with perlite and with pebbles. Basically, it's for drainage. It's for air to water ratios. Definitely something to consider depending on the type of grow you are. And then you have your rock walls. Some people love rock walls for your run to waste systems. Love rock walls for drippers. I know that the US growers absolutely love rock walls and growdans. Those innate medias with a really good air to water ratio. Just very, very good media. So that's the very basic differences between them. The reason you will pick a media is just because it suits you. You'll get the theme of the way I answer questions. We'll give you a nutshell, but most of the time, it's what suits you as a grower. So if you're growing mother plants, and by mother plants, I mean plants that have got a great genetic, and you want to create multiple plants, and you don't want to lose that genetic, you grow one big mother plant and you take clones off it. You want that mother plant to be in soil because it's easy to look after, and the plants will be happier and healthier, so your clones will be happier and healthier. In cocoa, tends to give you slightly better water to air ratio, especially if you mix with perlite or pebbles. If you're in a flood and drain system, then you're going to be wanting to use 60-40 or 40-60, a cocoa and pebble blend. If you're in AutoPots, a 60-40 mix is good, but you can use any media. And your growdans, probably for your more experienced growers, for your dripper growers, growdans, rock walls are brilliant. Not your run to waste, your NFT, that's what I meant to say before, your NFT, your nutrient film technique, brilliant for them. AutoPot, Summer Social have got involved on the Instagram. They said radiation from the sun is affected by time of year, time of day, and any obstructions such as cloud and water vapor. Also depends where in the world you are. So yeah, good points. That basically what AutoPot was saying there is that even though the sun is the best source of light when it's a clear day, and depending on where in the world you are, then there's a lot of variables with it. So I know that AutoPot have a lot of experience across the globe with different growers using AutoPots in very arid countries, very dry countries with very high temperatures. And you also have experience with growers outdoor where it's quite cold. So the reliability of the sun is not always as we need it to be. And for that reason, a lot of indoor growers, greenhouse, polytunnel growers will use the sun, but we'll also supplement with our HPS lights or our LED lights, because then we get the best of both worlds. So thank you very much for raising that point. Hopefully that's answered your question as well on the difference between all the medias you can buy. To finish up on that question, it's try them all, learn what works well for you, make sure you buy generally the best media for you. So mothers and organic soil. If you want to go for gold, you want to go for some cocoa. If you overwater, you want a cocoa that drains easily. And if you're in your NFTs or some other hydroponic systems, then your rock walls, your growdans are perfect for you. So choose the right media for you, but then experiment with different brands of soil, different brands of cocoa, and see which works the best for you. Oh, and this is the last question. Question number 12. What is the real benefit of pH and EC? I've never done it and I've been fine. So this is a question I get all the time. I pH and I EC because I want to understand everything that's going on in the root zone. I want to understand what I'm giving to the plants. But I also understand from the amount of people I've spoke to is that the people that don't pH and they don't EC, they also get really good results. And the reason for that, I believe, with regards to pH, a lot of nutrients and CANNA definitely will manage your pH for you. So their A and B will knock your pH down from 7 to around 6.3. And then the additives can knock it down a little bit lower to around the 6 mark. Real nice pH for the majority of growers. They'll also have elements within their nutrients that stabilize the pH. So it's not likely to rise or fall in medias as much as other nutrients can and will do. So the people that do well are probably using a really good nutrient that does the pH for them. EC. If you've been doing this for a while, a lot of people will not look at pens or meters, and they will just watch the plants. They will look at the plants and see how they're responding to the food that they give them and the environment that they're in, and they will make adjustments depending on how it looks. So for EC, people who don't pH, people who don't EC, you can get away with it. But the reason I see to do it, it's problem prevention. A stitch in time saves 9. Understanding what the plant is doing at the root zone. And my Instagram is about to go off. Thank you very much for joining us on Instagram. Make sure you EC and pH. And we'll be back next week. Thank you very much. Right. So podcast live only gives you an hour. So there's the Instagram people gone. To finish up this question, problem prevention, a stitch in time saves 9. The reason I said that is because for 2, 5, 10 years, you could do brilliantly and not have any problems with your pH and EC. But that one time when you could have been measuring it, you could have a pH problem. And before you realize it's affected the plant. To be able to understand what the plant is doing at the root zone. So if the EC goes up or down, the pH goes up or down, you will know if you measure them that those things are happening before something visible happens to the plant. And you'll be able to make changes before your plant starts being affected. So you're going to get the better yields, you're going to get the better quality because the plant's not had to look after itself. You've done its job for it. If the pH, if you don't pH and you get it to unknowingly 6.2, 6.1 all the way through, but the perfect pH is 5.8. And if you get your EC to within 0.3 or 0.4, so the plant grows well and you get good results, but you didn't quite get the perfect EC, all those little, let's call them 2% pH and EC and all the different things you can do in your environment, if there's 10 things that can increase your yields and your quality by 2%, if you do all those small things, then you end up with a 20% increase in yield and a 20% increase in quality. So getting the 2% will get you spot on. Increases yield, increases quality. Why not do it? I've heard the reasons for why you should do it, but why not do it? The reasons for not doing it are okay. Basically, they come down to a little bit of laziness. So what I will say, though, for people that don't EC and don't pH is, and this is the only valid argument in my opinion, if you're a new grower and you fixate on the pH must be this, must be 5.5, and I'm in week 6 of flower and the EC must be 2.2, if you start making changes and adding pH down because your pH wasn't quite spot on, and you start adding more nutrients or taking less nutrients away because your EC wasn't spot on, and you start making all these changes because you've read in a book or you've listened to the podcast and we said it should be around this amount, you can probably end up doing more damage by trying to get the pH spot on and trying to get the EC spot on and trying to get the temperature perfect, you can inadvertently do more damage by trying to be just trying to be right with your meters. Number one rule, your plant will tell you what needs to be done. You should, in my opinion, pH, should EC, but don't stick to it hard and fast. If you've naturally got your pH down to 5.7 and we say you should be a 5.5, I wouldn't be adding pH down to get it down to 5.5. I'd be happy with 5.7. If I'd added all my nutrients and it had come to 2 and it was in week 5 of flower, I wouldn't then start adding extra A and extra B just to tip it up a little bit. Be happy with what you've got to. Be happy that your plants are happy, and just use these pH and EC tools as measurements and as part of a toolkit. Use them to understand when the plant's potentially going wrong. Have them as a tool in your toolbox, but don't go over the top with them, because you can also get problems by trying to be too right, if that makes sense. It's always about watching the plant. It's always about being a grower. A lot of top growers across the world got much better results than I ever will, got much better results than you ever will, and never used an EC or a pH pen. But it's always good to have the tools in your toolbox. So that's the last question. Hopefully, thank you very much for everyone that sent in those questions. Thank you very much, especially for the people that jumped on the podcast at Product Earth and got involved there. Thank you very much to everyone that watched live on Instagram, everyone that watched live on YouTube. Thank you very much for joining me. Hopefully, I've answered all your questions that you got sent in. If you don't already, follow us on Instagram, the shop at NPK_hydroponics, the media company who puts together this beautiful podcast at NPK_media. And if you want to see or catch up or ask questions for the podcast, it's NPK Podcast. I'll see you all next week and have a great day. See you later. Bye-bye.